Howdy folks, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am your host, the Mighty Bjorn, and today for you, have a mighty game review of Gotham Knights. Going to take and dive into it here in a bit and do some discussion on this game and discuss what I like and disliked about the game, etc, etc. So let's get on into it here. First thing is the developer is Warner Brothers Montreal. The publisher is Warner Brothers Games. The engine is Unreal 4. It was released for PlayStation, Windows PC, and Xbox X Series October 21st, 2022. So this is actually a fairly new game. It's not new. It's been out for a few months now at the time of this recording. And it is an action RPG, which, yeah, it's definitely an action RPG. They definitely did not hide that fact whatsoever. It wasn't kind of like one of those things where they claimed it to be one thing and it was really something else. It was definitely a full-bore action RPG. And basically, the synopsis of the story is you're playing as the Batman family, which is the Red Hood, Nightwing, Batgirl, and Robin, after the death of Batman by the hands of Ra's al Ghul. And essentially, you're just taking over as the protector of the city. You start off with investigating a murder. It was a case that Batman was working on, and things would come out from there, and you would start to learn about the Court of Owls and the League of Shadows, trying to take over Gotham City. Now, with all that being said, from my understanding, this is loosely based on the DC comic run series of Batman Gotham Knights. I really don't know. I don't have any comics from that series. It's not a series I got into. It's kind of newer stuff, and I'm not really into the newer comics, but I can just take their word for it, essentially. Now, things I liked about the game is it was simple but fun. There's not a whole lot there to really learn. The bat cycle is actually kind of cool. I like it. It looks cool. It rides good, and it doesn't sound too bad. The story overall is pretty good, although I do want to say it probably could have been shortened up a little bit to be a little bit tighter. But overall, the story was actually pretty good, in my opinion. Now, there's different play styles. Each different character has a different play style, and you can play as all four of the members of the Batman family, which is nice, and they all play a little differently from one another, as well as some of their modes of transportation, etc., are a little bit different. So that was a pretty nice feature, in my opinion. Now, that being said, the game, in my opinion, has an just awesome atmosphere. It feels like a real lived-in major city at night. You know, you have people on the streets, you have the criminals on the streets, etc., etc. The way the city's laid out just is great, in my opinion. The way everything looks, the different sounds, just everything is great when it comes to the city itself. I like the gear building. The gear building's really simple. It's just collect resources and pretty much make pieces of gear. You got to get blueprints. With those blueprints, you can make pieces of gear to upgrade your existing gear. I think the character models, for the most part, are actually pretty good, although some of the outfits just look a little ridiculous. But for the most part, I think the character model work is actually pretty good. I do have to say this game also has some very quick load times. I was actually really quite impressed and kind of taken back on the load times on this game. Not a lot of games like this actually does have decent load times, but literally sometimes the load times was nothing more than the blink of an eye. So yeah, really good there. I like the main menu details. This is just kind of a small little snippet I want to point out, is as your character's costumes changes with the different suits that you put onto them, or the transmogs that you use, it actually does show up in the main menu screen. I think that's a really cool, nice little detail. I also like the custom costumes themselves and the different things you can do to them. Usually what you have is you have a couple different gear options to go through there, where you'll be able to change the cowl, the gloves, stuff of that nature, and you'll have usually 3 different options for each, as well as you can also change the colors of them if you have the blueprints for them, or you can just use transmogs that you have open, which for the most part, I use the transmogs, me personally. I like the sonar pulse system. They kind of have, it's kind of like a detective mode, but it's more like a sonar pulse than an actual all the time on detective mode like what you had in the Batman Arkham games. This is just more of a temporary thing. It doesn't really let you see. It kind of gives you X-ray vision, but it's a really, really, really short period of time, and it doesn't actually give you very good detail. It kind of just gives you a red outline of where the bad guy is, and the range is also very limited. I actually think for a game implementing some type of X-ray vision into its game for its stealth mechanics, they actually did a really good job here because it is so momentary that it just it didn't feel overpowered in any kind of way. It just felt like it worked, and most of the time, it didn't give me enough an advantage to constantly use it. I think generally overall, the voice acting for this game was pretty good. Not the best voice acting I've ever heard, but they did a fairly decent job. The voice actors did, especially the primary voice actors, which I would say is, of course, the 4 members of the Batman family, as well as Alfred himself. It's actually, now this is one thing I can really appreciate, and we don't really get in gaming at all, is fully customizable controls. Even the D-pad or the Xbox controller. Now, I understand this is the PC version I'm doing here, was fully customizable. That I could customize even the controller's binds. A lot of games like this, you usually get something where you can customize your keyboard and mouse binds, but you can't do anything with your controller binds, or you'll get like presets, and that's the closest thing you can get to customizing your controls. This game was absolutely fully customizable, and I really, really, really hope to see this more in the future, because honestly, most of the time it's nuts. Most games out there does not have a quote-unquote perfect controller layout, in my opinion, and like this is the best way to go about it, because then I can customize the controls to my taste. That being said, too, the game really is not that grindy. That's actually one thing I appreciate itself. The progression, for the most part, felt pretty natural. Now, that being said, I just kind of did all the secondary things anyway, because quite a bit of the secondary things does add to the story, or at least adds to the atmosphere and the immersion of you're supposed to be, a crime fighter in literally the worst city in the world. Now, move on to the stuff that I kind of felt was weak with this game, and that's the first thing I'm going to start off with is the graphics looks dated but fine. I mean, I think the graphics personally is okay for the most part, but honestly, the graphics kind of feels like a game from, games I've played in 2012 or 2014. They kind of feel a little dated here. They don't feel great, or they don't look great. Now, with that being said, too, when I talk about the graphics, and one reason I'm pointing out the graphics kind of feels a little dated is I suffered from some major FPS dips. And honestly, at this point, yeah. Raw! Yeah, fucking raw. And I know they've actually been working on it. Okay, now understand, I've been playing this after the series of updates that they've made this game. And from what I understand, when the game first dropped, it had some serious FPS issues. And at times, it still does have some serious FPS issues. And it's a little weird because it's really, at times, it's kind of like there's no rhyme or reason to it. Now, that being said, it didn't happen very often. So, basically, I couldn't really narrow down what was causing my FPS issues. And like I said, it was a very momentary thing from time to time. The game itself is very, very repetitive. It comes down to you're really doing the same couple things over and over and over again. And, if it wasn't for the strength of the story, it would just make the game feel even worse, especially when it comes to how repetitive it is. It is definitely an extremely repetitive game. With how simplified the combat is there's really not much in the way of spice there to it. And yeah, it just gets boring after so long with how repetitive it is. Next thing I noticed too, and I could be missing this, but there was no way to respec my characters. I couldn't get all the different stuff. You can't gain enough levels in the game to unlock all the different perks for each individual character, but I also noticed that there's real no way of respecking said characters. And unfortunately for some of the characters, such as Robin and Red Hood in particular, I didn't unlock the super secret squirrel knighthood skill tree, perk tree, if you will, until like near the end of the game. And by that point, I had already spent my skill points on other things, and I could not respec the characters. So it was that kind of, to me, that kind of sucks. And honestly, outside of the fact that there is heroic assault mode, which I really didn't get to try out, honestly, the game feels like there's a general lack of end game based content. But okay, so that's my opinions overall and stuff that I had pointed out. So what's this come down to? Well, the base game itself is $60, folks. The deluxe edition, which gives you some additional skins and some additional transmog, stuff of that nature, is $80. Now the Visionary pack is $24.99. Now, if you really got to have those additional skins, which honestly I do recommend because I think they're some of the best skins in the game, it's cheaper to get to the deluxe edition. With that being said, even at $60 for the base game, I would not recommend this game. Now, pick this game up on sale for $30, $40. I actually got the deluxe edition for $40. Yeah, you know what? It wasn't $40 that I felt sorry about spending. I played through the whole game. I got a lot of fun out of it. And there you go. That's my opinion of it. It's just, to me, it's not worth the full price, but it's definitely worth grabbing when it's on sale and when you can get it for a really good price. Anyway, folks, that is my review of Gotham Knights. Thank you very much for tuning in. And hopefully you like the video, things of that nature, and have yourself a wonderful day.